Northumberland County's rapid $2.3 million deal to expand the charity transition house's services at 310 Division Street without public consultation until after the agreement was made has sparked concerns about the lack of oversight and accountability, particularly given the shelter's history of misconduct allegations and its location within a family-friendly neighborhood. Through a series of reports, I have been following Northumberland County's rushed decision regarding a $2.3 million deal to expand low-barrier shelter services to Transition House, bypassing public consultation and raising concerns about its ties to the shelter, especially regarding the role of now-resigned Reverend Neil Ellis, who liaised between both entities to secure this deal. Despite allegations of misconduct and unprofessionalism against Transition House, the county proceeded with the acquisition of 310 Division Street to centralize and apparently modernize and expand shelter services with limited oversight and unclear metrics for success, all while community feedback has been poorly integrated, if at all. Northumberland County oversees small towns in southeastern Ontario and chose to centralize and expand services in Cobourg's downtown, but only consulted the public after securing a new building to expand its partnership with Transition House for low-barrier shelter services. The county moved incredibly fast on the $2.3 million deal, securing it in under 30 days. Local resident James Bisson says this highlights an incestuous relationship between Transition House and Northumberland County.
The relationship between the county and its service provider, Transition House, was incestuous. I can't explain it any other way. There was so much collusion between the two entities and insiders that were looking at not just how to provide for emergency sheltering, but working in tangent with each other in regards to getting at an end result that benefited certain people within that context it was the biggest eye opener. It is blatantly obvious that there were, at least at a minimum, a conflict of interest, at worst collusion between a government entity and its provider that they supported in unequivocal circumstances.
Bisson has done extensive access to information requests, which he made public record at a recent county council meeting, and these prove that the county first found out about the transition expansion offer to 310 Division on November 8th.
And to go from zero to a finish line in 30 days on a found property, I have information that I got through those FOI requests that indicate that the staff had no idea what was going to come after. They were dead set on getting a property for Transition House, period, at any cost, including our tax base, our livelihoods, and our community. So as far as I'm concerned, the county has not been very transparent at all. Transition House has been they push back a lot and are blaming the town of Cobourg and its residents for not embracing what they're doing because they've been doing it all wrong and behind our backs.
They made an offer 10 days later on November 18th. They revised and submitted it 2 days later on the 20th, and it was accepted the next day on November 21st and closed, a done deal, on December the 8th. But December 5th was the first time they asked for community feedback, already knowing that the offer was accepted, an exercise in futility, indeed. By way of background, Transition House in December of 2017 was closed after a staff assault and serious damage was inflicted within the historic building. It reopened in 2018 as a low-barrier shelter and has since faced accusations of misconduct, unprofessionalism, favoritism, inadequately training their staff. All of this raises serious concerns for a service provider dead set in a family-friendly neighborhood surrounded by an elementary school, small businesses, and churches serving vulnerable and often challenging clientele. Despite these ongoing concerns, Transition House was granted the purchase of 310 Division Street, a former nursing home, to consolidate and expand its operations, seemingly without clear oversight, established frameworks, or measurable criteria to assess client success and ensure community safety. The mayor of Cobourg has faced a challenging relationship with the county as a result, where he also serves as a representative, juggling his duties as both a county councillor and a spokesperson for the residents of Cobourg. In response to the lack of clear regulations, the town introduced a new licensing bylaw to establish ground rules for shelter operations called the Emergency Care Establishment Application, also known as the ECE bylaw. At a special county council meeting on October 29th, Mayor Cleveland pressed Transition House Executive Director Ike Newebe and Board Chair Megan McDonald on issues like fire code compliance and occupancy limits as per the Ontario Building Code. The exchange became notably tense, with McDonald left in tears and Nwibe seeming to rely on McDonald for prompts and pre-written statements, downgrading his position and describing himself as a mere shelter worker while avoiding direct answers to very straightforward questions. I think this clip will summarize it nicely.
Legislated ethical and moral responsibilities to a nonprofit agency that at present I'm concerned with isn't going to be able to provide the services that we're required to provide. I guess my question would be twofold. Is Transition House at 310 Chapel currently compliant with all provincial legislation? Secondly, would your insurance still be applicable if you are not compliant with the Ontario Building Code and or Fire Protection and Prevention Act?
So I'm here as a shelter worker, helping to support folks who need a place, to call home, and then helping them to get back on their feet. In terms of the technical issues around what I've done with the key officials that have approached us to inform us about where we might not be complying with one thing or the other, is that each of them will tell you something I always say is, under my watch, you cannot bring something to my attention and then it's not attended to, right? So ours is, given the situation that we are in now, how do we approach, how do we get to that point where, okay, we're now in compliance with all the concerns?
Thank you. I'm going to put a resolution on the table that County Council received the delegation from Ike Newebe and Megan McDonald, Transition House, regarding agenda item 3.8, response to unplanned reduction in shelter service for information.
Chair, I'm not done line of questioning, please and thank you.
We're going to put this on the table. And
sorry, point of order needs to be, you as chair will have to actually rule on the point of order that I've raised.
Is there a way to divide up some of your questions, Councillor Cleveland,
No,
for the staff report for later?
Through you, Chair, no, because the questions I have are in direct relation to the operation of Transition House. And
how many more questions do you have, Councillor Cleveland?
I'm not sure. It depends how often they're evaded.
Okay, continue on with your questioning.
Thank you. Again, does the executive director of the agency that is being provided millions of dollars from this corporation know if you are currently compliant with provincial legislation? Does the head of the board of directors know if the organization with which she oversees is currently compliant with all provincial legislation? I ask, as a member of this council who is liable for the organizations with which we contract out to provide our legislative responsibilities.
To the best of our knowledge, yes.
To the best of your knowledge, I just want to be very clear, yet you have been provided documentation through you, Chair, that states clearly you are not in regulation with provincial legislation because, again, the ECE bylaw is only enforcing already determined provincial legislations in regards to the Fire Prevention Act and the Ontario Building Code. So if the ECE bylaw has proven that you're not in compliance with those, how are we to understand that you believe, to the best of your ability, you are in compliance with provincial legislation?
Mayor Cleveland raises a valid concern. How dignified is it to house 8 individuals in a 16 by 16 room with 5 bunk beds, as was the setup at the previous location? Additionally, during my August tour of Cobourg's notorious, now dismantled encampment on provincial lands at the former Brookside Youth Detention Center, I heard disturbing allegations from individuals facing homelessness and addiction that revealed widespread unprofessionalism, unaccountability, and arbitrary arbitrary social service delivery within the county. After my recent discussion with local advocate and founder of IHARC, that stands for the Integrated Homelessness and Addictions Resource Center, Jordan Stevenson, I reached out to both Transition House and Northumberland County to get their side of the story. Some of my key questions included whether an application process secured Transition House as the provider for expanded shelter operations at 310 Division, the role of Reverend Neil Ellis, the organization's response to ongoing allegations of unprofessionalism, its policies for addressing issues, community concerns, and measuring success in transitioning individuals to permanent housing or treatment. No one from the registered charity receiving the majority of its budget from taxpayer funds responded, but the county did. While my line of questioning was similar to the county, I shifted the focus onto their role, asking about their selection process for Transition House, responses to the same issues, and oversight of the shelter's operation and community concerns. Northumberland County's Director of Communications and IT, Kate Campbell, responded that Transition House was the successful respondent to an open RFP, that's request for proposal process, the county undertook in 2018 for the delivery of shelter services in Northumberland. With rising homelessness and escalating need for service in the years since, the current Century Home facility at 10 Chapel Street was no longer meeting community needs. In December 2023, the county purchased the vacant property at 310 Division Street to enable the relocation and modernization of shelter services, consolidating shelter and warming/cooling space operations to a single site, and ensuring more coordinated supports for clients. To my second question about how the county addresses allegations of misconduct against Transition House and what policies are in place to manage such issues with service providers, Kate says that with respect to staffing, a typical ratio for shelters is 20 clients to 1 staff member. Transition House and Northumberland County have implemented a staffing model of 10 clients to 1 staff member to enhance service quality. She claims that the county has a service agreement with Transition House Shelter, which identifies shelter standards and service requirements. I have since responded requesting a copy of this. Kate states that Northumberland County offers various channels for community feedback on services, including online forums, calls, emails, and direct correspondence with council. For shelter operations, additional contact options are provided for non-emergency security and waste inquiries. A new 310 Division Community Liaison Committee will launch soon, comprising diverse members to address concerns, improve communication, and foster strong neighborhood relations, though this begs the question why it wasn't launched years ago. Kate confirms that community feedback comes through various channels, but feedback pertaining to 310 Division Street is currently being consolidated for an information report to be shared with the Social Services Committee in January. I have, however, filed an access to information request to capture this feedback, which you can help support at rebelinvestigates.com. Because the taxpayer-funded entity has come back and said they will charge $30 an hour for the work required to respond to this ask. In response to my final question, Kate relays that shelter services are designed to provide immediate temporary shelter for people living unhoused, and that it's important to note that not everyone who enters a shelter is ready to make the transition out of homelessness right away. Ultimately, the shelter is intended to help individuals regain stability and work towards self-sufficiency, first by meeting individuals' basic human needs, including shelter, food, and hygiene facilities. Success in this context, she says, is measured by the ability to fulfill these essential requirements for those experiencing homelessness, referring then to 7 anonymized success stories listed on Transition House's website. As a follow-up, I requested the above-mentioned service agreement and a time frame on when those 7 anonymized success stories occurred. At the time of this report, no one has responded further. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. It would appear that the accountable and supposed transparent bureaucracy at Northumberland County is accountable and transparent only if you're willing to pay. If you'd like to support my access to information request and the fees that this will incur, please do so at rebelinvestigates.com. Visit our Government Accountability Journalism website featuring these exclusive ATIP investigations and support this work by contributing to help offset the costs at rebelinvestigates.com.